This is the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sikkim Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sikkim Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. We're glad you're with us this week. John Morris, Brooke Bednarz. And, Brooke, we're in the presence of greatness for our podcast this week. How long have we been looking forward to this? And here it is. Jerry Hill is our guest on the Sikkim Podcast this week. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, J-Mo.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing that I did when I was on your new radio station. Man, you were scraping like he was trying for all these home runs, Brooke. You know, first day, new radio show,
for a single.
and he got Jerry. I'm like, wow.
No,
Well, the real
was
thing
planned.
you said, who we've been waiting to have on, but I mean, he stops by our office all the time, hoping to be on this podcast.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
Little hints.
I think he's little seeds planted.
Hey, we could talk about so many things.
Oh, and we are. We have so many things to talk about today.
That's great. Jerry is officially Baylor's Director of Sports Journalism. We know him and love him as the Baylor Bear Insider, just basically in-house writer for Baylor Athletics. Is that fair? That covers part of it, but doesn't cover everything that you do.
Yeah, and when I send emails out like to other schools and stuff, that's kind of how I describe myself, in-house writer for Baylor Athletics. That kind of describes it, and I try to cover I try to cover all the sports and try to give them as good a coverage as I can. But yeah, I think that's the easiest way is I'm the in-house writer.
One thing I'm looking forward to today is kind of flipping it on you. Everyone, you write about everybody,
That's
and
right.
now we get to say, hey, Jerry.
Hey.
Yeah, you're in our world now.
Other side of the mic. Ooh,
yeah. How do you feel about that?
I'm a little nervous, Brooke, particularly with you.
Oh, no.
I'm worried about where you're going to go with this.
I'm going to have a lot of
No, we're going to have
curveballs.
fun.
There's nothing I haven't brought up or talked about through the years, so you're not worried about me at all.
No, I'm not worried about John.
Yeah, that's good. Background history, University of North Texas grad, proud mean green, grew up in Arlington, proud of Arlington. You and JJ always are sharing your Arlington, your Arlington roots, and worked at the Waco Tribune Herald. Where before the Trib? Where
This
stops?
was it.
That was it.
Yeah,
okay.
I graduated from North Texas, and I will correct you on one thing. I'm actually a North Texas State University grad. It changed. I don't even remember how long after, but they actually sent me a deal. Hey, you want a new diploma? I'm like, and you got to pay for it. Nah, I'm good.
No,
I'm good. I graduated from North Texas State University.
Yeah.
So no, John, when I was graduating, and you go through the process of sending out your resume, and I had particular criteria and stuff, and Waco Trib met that criteria, and interviewed for a job and wanted sports. Obviously, interviewed with Mr. Dave, but they did not have a sports job opening at the time, so I took a copy desk job working on the news copy desk, and the second day I was there, a guy left to go to the Kansas City Star, and I put in my 2 weeks there. Ernie Murray, who was the news editor at the time, he said, we got you for 2 weeks. So he wouldn't even let John Werner talk to me. He kept him away. But yeah, I worked on the copy desk for 2 weeks and then jumped right into sports. So it was a great, opportunity for me.
How much of a draw was that, Mr. Dave, being at the Trib?
Yeah. It was funny because when I was at North Texas, and I guess I'd already sent my resume and stuff in, but he actually gave me some, I think it was high school stuff that I did, the little high school clips or bios that are in on each of the schools. And so I was actually doing some stuff for Texas football before I came down here. But, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to work with a guy like that? Amazing man, and it was so fun, John. And you obviously have a similar story, but just being able to travel with him and being able to hear the story, best storyteller that you could ever be around. And man, so I spent 10 years with him before he retired for the first time in 1993. And just, it was so much fun, getting to learn from him. And one thing I remember from Mr. Dave is when I was doing the Texas football stuff, and this was literally back when we were doing it on typewriter and sending him the copy and stuff. And man, that paper would come back with red marks all over it. So you get humbled really quickly, but that's how careful and that's how much of an editor and just, details and everything that he was. And you kind of walked away a little humbled, but you became better because of it.
We do want to make sure, I know we all talk about Mr. Dave, but if for whatever reason you're listening and you don't know who we're talking about Dave Campbell with Texas football. I want to know what the one thing, if you had to name one thing that you've taken away from your time with just working for him, working with him, being a friend of his, what's the one thing that you would say you've pulled away from that?
Well, I think it goes back to the details because, he wanted to make sure everything was right. And one thing I'll remember, Brooke, though, is at one point my desk was just outside of his office, and I would look in there, and you saw this big smile on his face, like he's working on his column, but he's got this big old smile on his face, and you're like, man, he really enjoys what he's doing, that kind of thing. So I think that's part of it too is, man, enjoy what you're doing because, I think there's a lot of people out there that would love to do what any of us are doing, working in sports, covering sports, going to games. I think sometimes it amazes people that, hey, you don't pay to go to the games.
Yeah.
You actually get paid to go to the games. So, I think that's probably one of the big deals is just enjoy what you're doing because, and man, he's enjoyed it for a long time.
So much so he came out of retirement.
Yes,
and
he
is
did.
still writing.
He's still writing.
Yeah.
So many life lessons from Mr. Dave and the time you spent with him, personal and professional, and and you guys continue to this day to be very close.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun because again, he's a legend. But I tell you, Brooke, back to what you asked too, though, you would never know by how he acts. I think he treats everybody the same way. Like I see him interact with students and stuff, and he treats them with the same respect, that way more respect than they probably deserve at that point. But that's another thing you take from him is just he's so amazing with everybody, and you wouldn't know that he's this legend. And I don't think he sees himself that way, but he is. But yeah, John, to your point, just the time that I've gotten to spend with him, and obviously as more than just my boss, my initial boss, but I mean we played tennis together. I will tell you that he is probably one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. Because he'd hit a shot and it'd go whizzing by me, and he's like, "We win." So I grew to hate him in those moments. But
darn,
a lot of fun.
Well, one thing that stood out to me the first time I met him, obviously I'd grown up reading all of his stuff, knowing exactly who he was. But the first time I met him, I thought, oh, this is going to be real quick. It was at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, and he was signing magazines. And, I standing in line, and then I realized, if I was waiting in line for anything else, this line would be moving a lot quicker than it is. And so I was like, am I being cut in line? Like, what is going on? And then I look up and I start paying a little bit more attention. And he wasn't just signing the magazine. He wanted to know your name. He wanted to know where you had come from, why you were here, wanted to know all of these things, and then was sharing stories with these people before he signed their magazine and they went on their way. And so I just thought, how neat that even at this point, he's still taking the time to get to know people because, the line was out the door. So he was there for well past his little window of time. And I think that just says a lot about who he is and, just the time and effort that he put into getting to know people, like you said.
And John knows this, but his memory, he's going to be 96 in March. And his memory back to, some football game from 1949. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm trying to remember stuff that happened from this past season.
What did I eat for dinner last night?
And he'll joke about that. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast, but it's amazing that you'll bring up a game and he doesn't just remember the score. He remembers plays. He remembers drives. I mean, it's amazing, the memory. Obviously, he wrote about a lot of these games, but I've written a lot of stories too, and I don't remember details like that. He's just got a photographic memory.
So while you were at the Waco trip, you were covering a wide assortment of things. Obviously now it's all Baylor,
right.
But one of the things you did cover was Baylor. But what else? What were the other things you were covering while you were at the Waco trip? Because you were there for 25 years. That's a lot of events to cover.
And I will say, I probably shouldn't say this for the podcast, but I was there 25 years. I was supposed to get a 25-year award. It was a panini maker. I'm still waiting on it.
Oh, Trib, come on.
Trib, if you're listening, we need our panini maker.
They've changed ownership a few times since I left. Yeah. No, Brooke, I started out in high school. Like I said, I started out on the copy desk, but when I moved over to sports, I was one of the 2 high school writers at that point. David Mantooth was there, and him and I did the high school picks and all that. And I covered high schools for 4 years. I did some more high school coverage after that, but got the Baylor football beat in 1987. John and I are kind of, again, similar in that situation, that we kind of both started about the same time. And then, as the years went on, now when Dave left, I became the assistant sports editor. But then, and that's what's helped me along the way. Being there 25 years, you're like, man, did you get bored? Doing the same stuff. I did the high school those first 4 years. I got the football beat in 87, became the assistant sports editor in 93. And then this was kind of a big thing for me anyway, was when Kim Mulkey came in 2000. John Werner had been covering both basketball teams, men and women, and Kim Gorham, who was the sports editor at the time, to his credit, was like, hey, let's split these up. And I took the women and John took the men, and it was great. I mean, obviously, people know the history of that or how quickly they became really good, but that was so much fun. I mean, being in Indianapolis for that first Final Four in 05 and just traveling with them all that time. So I, covered them from 2000 to 2008 when I came here, but also did a lot of MCC athletics. I even traveled with them some because of staff limitations and stuff. They don't cover that like a beat like they used to, but I mean, I did, basketball, baseball, softball, everything, and we'd go to like region tournaments and stuff. And I remember I was traveling with them. I think it was in basketball once. And Wendell Hudson was the AD at the time, and when we were going to McDonald's for a meal, and he's like, Jerry, order anything on the menu that starts with small. Hey, it's all open to you. Yeah. Anything that starts with small, you're good. So a lot of fun then, but. Yeah, so I covered a wide variety of stuff, so many different sports and stuff, but it was a lot of fun. Fun 25 years.
What's the one event that stands out of the 25 years? I'm putting a lot on the one.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know the one thing that when you think that stands out.
Obviously the women's Final Four in 05 was a big deal, but the one I remember was the men's Final Four in, John, you might have to help me on this, but it was probably 86 or so. When
in
Never
Dallas.
Nervous Purvis was there. You could not do this now, but we actually had 2 credentials, and we rotated 3 people.
Wow.
You could not do that now.
That is not how it works.
That would not jive,
now.
But I think it was me, Mickey, and John. And just being there, and I think it was probably one of the last small arena Final Fours.
Yeah, it was at Reunion Arena.
It was Reunion Arena, which is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
But that, and I'm 25 at the time, covering a Final Four, that was such a big deal. And at the moment, that was about as good as it gets. Covering a Final Four, and again, there's no, Baylor's not there, but I get to cover, and that was Louisville that won it. Louisville
mm-hmm.
that won it. So that was probably my favorite moment. I tell you one thing I really always enjoyed covering too, though, was the Colonial golf tournament, because my dad marshaled there for like 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Just retired or just finished doing that recently. But so I grew up going and watching that golf tournament, and to be there covering it, that was again about as good as it gets. And the one I remember in particular was when Annika Sorenstam was there, first woman at a PGA event, and getting to cover her there, but also got to meet Dan Jenkins. I have like 3 favorite authors, and he's one of them. And I got to not only just meet him there, but most of the people were out on the course, and Dan and I are in the media room talking.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's great.
Again, just a great moment. And one of my other ones is John Grisham.
Right.
And
J-Mo
and I got to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
So the one I have left is Larry McMurtry. And he's got a bookstore. I'm trying to remember where it is, but it's a little bitty place. And he owns the bookstore. And I've thought about just making that trip.
In Texas?
In Texas,
yeah.
And it starts with an A.
Okay.
I can't remember the name. Kim Gorham, I know, would know because he's been there. But yeah, that's the third one on my list, and I haven't met him yet. But the other 2 I've not only met but got to talk to. And
let's make that happen.
Yeah, take a little road trip.
And like I said, he owns it, and usually he's in there. Otherwise he's pretty much a recluse, but he does own that bookstore, and I need to make that trip sometime.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah.
There's only one Motor Trend Truck of the Year. It's Ram from Allen Samuels. Now, kick off the new year with remarkable savings on new Rams during the Allen Samuels Start Something New sales event. This special New Year's event is underway right now, and you can save thousands on new Rams. Ram, for your family, farm, or business, at Waco's most trusted dealer, Allen Samuels. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Your friend in the car business.
Whether on the field or cheering from home, Du Bois Furniture is proud to support the Baylor Bears. If your bear cave needs updating, Du Bois Furniture is here to help. With over 59 years of our family serving yours, let our experienced sales team help you find exactly what you want. We specialize in custom upholstery, stunning dining rooms, elegant bedrooms, gorgeous leather, and top quality mattresses. Come see us in Waco and Temple, or visit us online at DuBoisFurniture.com. Du Bois Furniture, where beautiful homes happen.
Now, back to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat.
So what was the transition like from the Trib, where you got to be neutral? I mean, right now you're all Baylor. We're all Baylor. You're wearing a Baylor shirt, a Baylor jacket. I mean, we're all Baylor here. But at the Trib, you had to be an objective journalist. What was the transition like from the Trib? No matter what Tommy Witherspoon says, you were an objective journalist.
I was gonna go there.
I'll mention that name.
I did get accused of being a homer a few times, although I felt like I was pretty straight line. And you do get close to the teams. I mean, when you cover them for that long, at the Trib, I was the football beat writer for 21 years. You can't help but grow close to them, get to know the coaches, get to know the players. So you do pull for them. You try not to do that in your writing, and it was easy to do for about 4 years there. But
no names.
No names. The transition, though, John, it was interesting. Obviously, and you know a little bit of that background, but Nick Jose had been talking to me for close to a year. He knew Dave was going to retire again. And I always said I would not want to be the one that followed Dave and wasn't at the Trib. Thankfully, Kim Gorham followed him. But I did hear at Baylor, he was the editor of the Baylor Bear Insider newsletter for 15 years. And they were just Dave was wanting to step away again, and I think they were looking for more immediacy. This was a newsletter that was mailed out. So the Saturday football game, you're getting stuff on it on Tuesday or something. So they were looking for, so we, like I said, Nick had been talking to me for a year, and I was certainly interested. And, so I came on board in August of 2008, and it was a great move, obviously. I mean, I think the paper sold within the next month. Apparently I was the last straw, I mean, if we can't have Jerry Hill, we're just going to sell the newspaper. Cox owned it the whole time that I was there, and that was a great situation for me. But yeah, coming here, it was a great move. But you're right. I mean, and I think Nick in particular was a little worried at first, like, is he going to be able to, and he had to read everything.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah,
I remember
he
that.
read everything, and he just wanted to make sure that my, slant or whatever. And I don't think I ever really had a problem with that. I was never going to, throw coaches or players or whatever under the bus. I remember, John, because we were doing blogs back then. And I remember writing one, and mine was View from the Hill, and I still get comments about that because it's my Twitter account too, but it sounds very egotistical, but I did not come up with that on either one of them. But Brad Sheffield was the one who actually came up with the name for the blog.
Right.
And then he made that my Twitter handle as well. So I still get, but anyway, I remember one that I wrote that they weren't using Jeremy Sanders enough. Like, he was this great athlete from Marlin, and they just weren't. They were underusing him, and I remember writing that in a blog and regretting it, like almost immediately.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have written that. So yeah, I've, obviously, and have loved working at Baylor. And it is different though. I mean, when you've been on the other side for 25 years, and then you do have to kind of shift gears to being in-house, it is different. And I'm telling you, one time that I remember where I was like, okay, I'm on board, was I was at a basketball event. And again, I won't throw out names, but I remember somebody sitting on like what was then Champions Row, and it was a UT person, but he was sitting with a Baylor person. And this guy's, cheering for UT down on the Champions Row. Mm-hmm. And I was getting angry. I was like why is this guy down on Baylor's Champions Row? So that was when I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm all on board.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've all been on the other side, local media,
yeah,
all three of us.
Yeah.
And one thing that you said that stood out is even I was not there for 25 years.
Right.
I have barely been alive for 25 years.
Thank
but,
you. Thanks, Brooke. Thank
we
you for
appreciate
reminding
that.
me.
Yeah.
just reminding everyone. Yeah.
So young.
But
Stop.
being on both sides, one thing that it is difficult is because everyone here in Waco is your audience in Central Texas, and they are Baylor fans, so it is easier to talk about when a team is winning. It's more fun to talk about when a team is winning. But switching over, and now we're all Team Baylor, like John said, we're all wearing green. We get to talk about it on a podcast every week. What would you say has been, once you realized that you were full on board Team Baylor, what's been kind of the biggest benefit in your own mind, like for yourself?
Probably the clothes in my closet.
We have a lot of green and gold clothes.
It is so funny because you look at my closet, I have a walk-in closet, and literally like this half is Baylor stuff. All the way back, all my shirts are Baylor. And here's kind of a funny thing, Brooke, and I don't know if you dealt with this at the TV. Probably did, because there's budgets at the TV station too, but travel would probably be one of the biggest things, because I remember, and John Warner and I were really good at it. Like we always followed the company line, and we tried to do everything we could to cut corners and stuff. Stayed at Motel 6, flew the red eyes and all that. I remember one year when the Big 12 tournament was in Dallas. It would have been like maybe 2004 or so. But I remember I stayed at a Super Motel 6 or whatever the one is where you can actually stay. Mm-hmm. And so I was there a week, and Becky Gregory, who was our managing editor at the time, she was like, "Jerry, you cannot do this to yourself." And I'm like, I know I'm not going to be there very long,
right.
In the hotel room, so it really didn't matter to me. But that is probably one of the biggest things is, traveling on, charter flights and staying at nice hotels. But I think too, Brooke, just the family here, because there was a camaraderie in that locker room, in the newsroom. There was a camaraderie, particularly with sports, that was very unique. But I think coming here and seeing that family atmosphere throughout the building, throughout athletics, really throughout Baylor, that's been, such a huge thing for me. And I remember when I came here and we went through I don't know if you would have gone through it, but I can't remember if they're doing it now, but it was the orientation. It was like a 3-day thing. And I remember at one of our first meetings we had prayer. The lady led prayer.
Yep.
And I was like, 25 years at the Trib, I don't know if anybody ever said a prayer other than, man, we prayed Jerry meets deadline, and it didn't happen a lot. So yeah, that was kind of a unique thing that hit me right in the face. Like, there was prayer in my very first meeting at Baylor. So that's obviously been a huge benefit for me.
Yeah, we didn't have but we did have the 2-day orientation. And for me, obviously, faith isn't the only way faith was incorporated in any of the stories I worked on was if the person I was interviewing brought it up themselves. That's how that works. And if they did, just my personal, I would always, include it because that meant a lot to them. Yeah. But then here, kind of, you mentioned the prayer being the first thing for you. My very first assignment here was actually to make videos of the 4 pillars. And of the 4 pillars, the very first one I had was spiritual growth. Yeah. And so my story was to sit down with these student athletes and hear about their faith testimony and how they've grown in their faith and gotten to know Jesus since they came to Baylor. And I called my mom and I go, you'll never believe what I did today. And this is a story, and I get to be a part of that, and it's encouraged. And so, going off of that, I know it's
very open here. Very, it is a spiritual place to work and play. But yeah, that's been a neat thing for me because I remember in my career at the Trib, and I'm trying to remember his name, John, but Brad, that was the PA guy that got in trouble.
Brad Cox.
Yes. So Brad, actually, I went to church with Brad. Uh-huh. I was the college director at the time, and I remember him wanting to come meet with me about what's it like being a Christian in a media business. Because
that's
very
nice for you. That's a compliment to you.
It's a very valid question, though, because when you look around and it's very liberal. But he saw that in me, which I appreciate. But just that sit down was like, it is a struggle at time. And Bryce Cherry, who's the sports editor now, he's been a deacon at the Baptist Church, and so him and I have also had some of those same discussions that sometimes it is a struggle to be a Christian, to be, a person of faith in this business and media. So, and I hope that we show that light, and here I can openly show that light. Mm-hmm.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oil field trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
TNG can, and here's why.
To say my wife and I have a lot to clean is an understatement. So we go to TNG Chemical, where the pros know what cleaning solutions to use and give us detailed instructions on exactly how to use them. We never got that kind of advice from any other stores. And the prices at TNG are great. From general household cleaners to odor control solutions for our pets. We go to TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why.
TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why.
You're listening to the Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Here again are Brooke Bednarz and John Morris.
Jerry Hill is our guest on this week's Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Jerry has been around Baylor Athletics for a long time. We've talked about that from his work at the Trib for 25 years and now here at Baylor since August of 2008. As such, Jerry has inherited the unofficial title of historian for Baylor Athletics. Yes. And there's others we can draw upon, like Mr. Dave, like Coach Hart. I mean, there's a lot of people who have been here a lot longer than we have. Right. But Jerry, you've seen a lot in Baylor Athletics, and your memory, I think, is very, very good. You talk about Dave's, but your memory is very good. And especially, let me pay you a compliment here, not just football or basketball, the other sports, the tennis, the golf, the track and field, all those things. You've covered all those through the years, and you're a good resource, really good resource in the history of really all the sports.
Yeah, and John, it's been. I think I've been on the Hall of Fame board now for like 7 or 8 years, and man, it's so much fun to do that because, I mean, it is an honor too, but it's so fun to look at all the ones that have come through here and stuff. So that's been a big deal for me, and you know, I know Walter wanted me to be on it because of my knowledge of the history and stuff, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun because, you know, I mean, there's a lot of good people on that board too. I think Ricky Thompson's on there too, but there's a lot of good people.
It's
on
another
that board.
topic with Ricky. You're talking about the Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame. Now,
part of the selection process.
I was on at one point. I was on the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame, which, you know, again, that was a lot of fun to be a part of that. But yeah, Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years.
Well, one thing that stood out to me is even when I was working TV before I came to Baylor, I would interview some of these athletes.
Wait, you worked TV?
What? Crazy.
What?
They would, I would come across these athletes and I'd be interviewing them, and then they'd say, "Oh, do you know John Morris? Do you know Jerry Hill? I remember he blah, blah, blah." You know, and I'm like, man, they know everybody, you know? And so I've said it once, I've said it probably 3 times now. I'm going to say it one more time, but just being on these podcasts and getting to hear the stories.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I've been giddy knowing that I get to sit here with both of you, you know, like y'all are both historians
right? Oh my
here,
gosh.
you know, and to just hear all about, the history of all these Baylor athletics, all the student athletes that have come here and been super successful. And I mean, now y'all were a part of, you know, the 25 for 25. Yeah. And I want to hear from you what that is and kind of tell people if they haven't heard already. It's been going on for a little bit now, but it will carry out for the next couple of months. So Baylor Athletics 25 for 25.
And I think John initiated this, but, you know, Baylor or Big 12 was doing their 25 for 25 and you know, kind of latching onto that idea. We thought we could do a Baylor 25, and I think there are some that are in the Big 12 one that are from Baylor, obviously, but we thought that'd be pretty – well, I think the initial thought was that would be easy. No, it was not easy. The hard part is narrowing it down to 25 because – you're talking about 25 years. You're talking about 19 sports. You know, we've added A&T and equestrian since the start of Big 12. Soccer was coming in as we were going into Big 12. But, man, there's so, you know, that's a lot of time, a lot of great athletes. And, you know, it was tough. And, John, I'm trying to remember the number, but I think, you know, there's been in that era of 96 through 2000, there's, you know, I think maybe close to 40 Hall of Fame that have been elected, you know, from that era. Mm-hmm. So you could have done it just with that. But then if you had done just that, then you would have eliminated the 2010 through 20 era, which
has been very successful.
Arguably the best decade. Not even arguably. It is the best decade in Baylor athletics. So, yeah, it was tough because there have been so many phenomenal athletes during that time. But it was a labor of love, though. It was a lot of fun. It made some tough decisions, but yeah, and again, we could have done easily another 25, another 50. I mean, but these are, we feel like, the best of the best, and there were some great names left off. But yeah, we've, you know, and you're right, we're into our 3rd week now, and have enjoyed it, and I'm curious to see how people will react to it, and maybe curious to see what their reaction to is when somebody's left off. We started it alphabetically. So
let's say that one more time.
Alphabetically, not numerically.
Alphabetically.
Exactly.
All bolded, underlined, italicized.
No, this is not 1 through 25. So we did Benjamin Becker and Andrew Billings that first week, and then Stacy Bauer-Smith and Trayvon Bromell in that second week. And again, those are, you know, phenomenal athletes. Whitney Canyon will be posted on Tuesday,
tomorrow,
yesterday. So again, great athletes, and there's, you know, another 20 or whatever coming. So yeah, it's been fun, and I know John's had a radio part in this too, but been able to do stories on each of the 5 so far, and 20 more to go. And again, it was a lot of fun. Had to make some tough choices, and I I struggle with some of the ones that were left off. Mm-hmm. I really do. As much fun as it was tough to leave some of those names off.
Obviously, criteria, I mean, best of the best.
Right.
Accolades and accomplishments and things like that. But kind of what separated in your mind the best from the best of the best?
And part of the problem too, Brooke, is you are judging or critiquing whatever people across those 19 sports. Mm-hmm. So how do you judge a say a 6'4", 300-pound defensive lineman versus I won't even get into weight, but an A&T athlete. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard to judge, compare, or whatever.
It's
but
apples and oranges,
right? So what we looked at really was all Americans, and really, I would say probably the vast majority of them were national award winners. I don't know if you know, but we did have. He's not there yet, but we did have one Heisman Trophy winner in the history of Baylor, so he might make the list. That's kind of fits in that category, though. So we did look at that, and that's a way to at least compare different sports. Is if they were the best in that sport that year, they're probably going to make the list. So again, it left off some great ones, but when you start with that as the bar. Then you feel good about the list you come up with.
Well, of the 5, I mean, just looking at it, we have NCAA champions, and they're some of them are 2-time. We have Olympians. We have NFL athletes.
Andrew Billings was the Big 12 co-defensive player of the year and defensive lineman of the year. Mm-hmm. Draft pick and playing in the NFL. So it's again, I think each one of them deserve to be on there, and there's a few that aren't on there that probably deserve to be on there. But that's good. There will be debate, and there will be some discussion about who weren't on it, who is on it. So that's good. That's a good thing.
Obviously, articles are being put out whenever they're being announced, so you're getting to visit with them. So I'm assuming they know ahead of time.
Honestly, in some cases, I've pulled stuff from other stories I've written.
Okay.
But now with Whitney Canyon, who again was posted yesterday, I actually did visit with her, but I prefaced it. I have not told her. I prefaced it with, I just want to do a little update before softball starts. So I did not tell her.
Oh, really?
I did not tell her that she was on her 25.
So when they're posted, it's a surprise.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it was good catching up with Whitney. I actually talked with her and got an update on how she's doing and stuff. So those are fun. And I think I'm not going to be able to talk to all 25, but I think that conversation I had with her, I think I'm going to do more of those though too, to try to get an update on where they are, that kind of thing. And she's obviously married, has 2 children, and I asked her about, if she's going to, stay in coach or if she's going to coach or whatever. And she did for a little bit. And I think she's gotten a lot of requests and stuff for pitching lessons and stuff. And she does work with a niece, but her daughter turns 1 at the end of this month. And I think that's what she's waiting for. She's waiting to work with Reagan, her daughter. So that'll be a lot of fun.
There were so many tough decisions to really narrow the candidates down. The list started with about 100, right?
Yeah.
100 qualified candidates to be on this list, 25 for 25. And to get it down to 25, there were some really tough decisions to be made. And we all agreed that for some sports, maybe not all, but for some sports, we could have done a top 25 in an individual sport. Think about that. Yeah. So that shows the quality of student athletes that have come through here in the 25 years of the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, and you think about that era, John. I mean, it's been unbelievable. I mean, yes, there were some struggles in football during that first part of that. But if you look across the board, I mean, and then particularly if you look at this last 10 years, it's been an amazing decade. But I think, we worked, the list wound up being about split. We were kind of wondering about, is there going to be too much recent bias, that kind of thing. But I think we did a pretty good job in terms of, there's some history there. There's some in that first 15 years, but then we had pretty good equal representation with the last 10 years, which you had to have. You had to have some from this decade because it is the best decade in Baylor athletics history.
There's only one Motor Trend Truck of the Year. It's Ram from Allen Samuels. Now, kick off the new year with remarkable savings on new Rams during the Allen Samuels Start Something New sales event. This special New Year's event is underway right now, and you can save thousands on new Rams. Ram, for your family, farm, or business, and Waco's most trusted dealer, Allen Samuels. Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Your friend in the car business.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
This is the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat in Waco. Online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Continuing this week's Sikkim Podcast with Jerry Hill. It's brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat on the web at allensamuelsdcj.com. Jerry, we talked about being around Baylor Athletics so long. You are our sort of our resident historian, and part of that this week there is a major date in Baylor history that we remember every year. It's this Friday, the 22nd of January, the anniversary of the tragic Immortal 10 bus train crash in Round Rock.
Right.
And I think we at Baylor and in Baylor Athletics and then Baylor basketball specifically do a really good job of recounting that story and remembering the Immortal 10 every year.
Really do. I've enjoyed, and I don't remember when that started, but I've enjoyed, the players wearing those jerseys. Mm-hmm. That's been a really cool thing. I remember the first time they did it, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Ish Wainwright. That's not,
it's not
Kelly or Winchester.
That's right. That's right.
It's like,
that's right.
That's not who are these guys? But no, I think that's been a cool thing, a great way to to memorialize those guys, and I think anything like that, and obviously, we've had some other schools that have gone through, similar tragedies, I would say, but I think it's important to remember stuff like that and the impact it had, and the first overpass was created after that, and just so I'm sure there were a lot of safety measures that have been put in place since then, and then you hear it wasn't just these 10 people died, but you had a hero out of it in Abe Kelly, I believe, and pushing his longtime childhood friend, his, just somebody that he was really close to, saving that life. So we can remember that too, that, yes, there were 10 that died, but there was a hero in there, and he saved somebody. Could have been 11. It might have been an immortal 11, but he saved one. So I think we need to remember stuff like that too. And we do have remembrances, with the monument that was put in place in 2007, Castellaw Communications Building, that was from his family. So, I think it's good to remember stuff like that. And like I said, I think my favorite part of that, though, is the basketball jerseys and seeing that and knowing that, that those guys know who those are, too. And this is brought up, I guess, at every freshman, right, orientation or whatever.
That's it. It's not just athletics.
It's not athletics.
Yeah, the campus does a really good job, freshman orientation every year, telling the story and retelling about the Immortal 10. So it is really a part of the fabric of Baylor University, not just Baylor Athletics.
And being on that side, too, it always hits me a little hard, the deal about the Lariat reporter,
Yeah.
And, he wouldn't have even been on that. Or on that trip, so just stuff like that. And again, I think it's good to remember that, and to learn from it and whatever. But I think it is part of Baylor's history, and we do need to remember that.
Obviously, when they started with the jerseys, I'm sure you got to visit with some of the players year after year and talk to them about what it means for them to wear those jerseys. So I'm interested to hear some of those comments that you can recall on what it means to them, because, you know, they grow up and they, you know, are admiring all of the college basketball players and they want their jersey with their name on it. Right. But then to kind of pause and be a part of that history, recognize and honor that history specifically for their sport. Right. What are some of the things that they've told you?
Yeah, and I think I remember in particular, you know, and they always play. They always say they play for the name on the front. Mm-hmm. But I think for one night they play for the name on the back too. You know, that's a big thing. You know, they always play for the name on the front for Baylor, but for that one night they also play for that name on the back. And I know it was, and John would probably be able to share in this too, but I know Ish seemed like he always,
it meant a lot to him.
Really meant it made an impact with him that this was something special.
Well, that anniversary is coming up. It's this Friday. It's January 22nd, 1927 was the year. And thanks for giving us your thoughts on that. As we wrap things up, let's change the tone just a little bit. Uh-oh. Jerry, as our in-house writer, is, you know, it's kind of on an island. You know, there's not a lot of guys in the department that do. I mean, everybody in athletic communications writes, but what you do is sort of on an island. Yeah. What I do is sort of on an island also in the athletic department. So, Jerry, we've adopted Jerry in our radio crew. Brooke, yes. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of travel, a lot of times, you know, to be our radio crew and Jerry. Yeah. So he's an adjunct member of our Baylor radio crew, and Jerry. We could probably do a whole nother podcast about our travels and how loved you are among our radio broadcasters.
So
yes.
But they love me.
You fit right in. You really do fit right in.
And Ricky Thompson and I do have that special
It's very
friendship.
special. Yes.
It's John. I do appreciate you including me in that group, because it is a fun group to travel with. And it worked out so well when we weren't traveling with the team that we were able to go separately, and it is a fun group to be a part of. And yes, I might get kidded a little bit.
a little. Yeah, a little.
So,
but you handle it so well.
I handle
You're
it
Jerry
so
Hill. You also dish it out.
So Brooke,
that's true, Brooke. Very good.
I think we were on the Iowa State trip this year, and I had Argyle dress socks with my tennis shoes.
Okay.
And
now, Brooke, as a female, what do you think about that?
I mean, okay. Is that not obvious?
Yeah.
A little weird.
I had khakis or probably these same pair of pants on, but yeah. So Ricky Thompson was like, "Wait a minute, what are those?
What are those?
What are you wearing, Jerry?" And so gave me a hard time, and I think
it's all about comfort. Style until it is necessary.
And
comfort.
They were longer, so they covered my my legs and stuff. But anyway, so the next trip I think was Tech, and my friend John Morris brought me a pair of Nike athletic socks,
white socks
to wear with my tennis shoes.
It was a gift from all of us.
It was a gift, yes, and there was a presentation made even.
Oh,
so
I'm sure.
it was a whole thing. I'm pretty sure it wound up on Twitter and the whole thing.
There are pictures, yes.
Yeah, and now this doesn't work for podcasts, but now
we can describe it.
I have converted, so I wear the shorter, like
ankle high,
kind of no-show type socks,
right,
with my tennis shoes. And my wife is actually proud of me too that that I have converted.
Oh, that's so good.
I think she's still curious why I wear athletic socks with my slacks, but it's what's comfortable.
Yeah, and with tennis shoes. It's with tennis shoes.
So anyway.
Don't worry, we've snapped a photo.
Good,
we can tweet it out.
Yeah,
we'll tweet it out.
I owe that
so
to
you can believe us.
Ricky Thompson and to John Morris and JJ Joe and Bob Baker, that crew that they have welcomed me as part of the auxiliary radio crew.
That's right.
I am what do they call that? Ad hoc, not ad hoc.
Adjunct?
Adjunct.
That's the word I use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
adjunct.
Adjunct. You're a part. No, you're just a part of our
the crew.
You absolutely are.
Have a lot of fun with that.
It's a great group text name, I'm sure. Baylor Radio and Jerry.
And Jerry.
Yes. Yeah, he's in there. He's in that group text.
I'm in there somewhere.
Well, know how much we appreciate you and your good work, and I know we speak for a lot of people when we say that, and it's fun to visit with you and share some stories back to Trib days and getting to Baylor, and then historical perspective that you have. So we appreciate your time on this week's Sikkim Podcast.
I will tell you, John and Brooke, this went way longer than I thought. I thought we were going to visit for like 10 minutes and be
10
done.
minutes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So this is fun.
Lots
I
of
appreciate
good
you
stories.
guys and what you guys do, too.
We've enjoyed it. Thanks for coming.
Jerry Hill, Baylor's Director of Sports Journalism, Baylor Bear Insider, and Snappy Dresser, our guest on this week's Sikkim Podcast. For Jerry and Brooke Bednarz, I'm John Morris. Talk to you next week with our next Sikkim Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at AlanSamuelsDCJ.com. The Sikkim Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.